We want you to get us sued. That's one of the first things that I say to all of the new hires that we have that started our company. We want them to get us, we want our reporters to get us sued, and we want our editors to make sure that we win those lawsuits. They think that we're joking, but we're really not. My name is Andrew Fishman, and I'm a reporter. This is really sensitive. Wow, that went like 8. I started at The Intercept in 2013, before it was actually called The Intercept. It was founded by Glenn Greenwald, Jeremy Scahill, Laura Poitras. It was created as a home for the reporting for the Snowden archive. Who's the guy down there in the bottom that you probably recognize? Wow, this is incredible. So in 2016, and I started living in Rio de Janeiro then. In 2016, I led the creation of The Intercept Brazil, which we started as a site to have aggressive investigative journalism that's totally independent from Brazilian funding and interests. And it was created in the middle of a massive political and economic crises that are still engulfing the country. Started in 2014, and at that time it was the peak of the impeachment crisis. And we're about to have an election very soon. Both The Intercept and Intercept Brazil, they're different products, they're different sites, but they share the same central values, which is that it's created to speak truth to power, to be incredibly aggressive, and to focus on creating high-quality investigative journalism in a way that the reporters can decide the best way for them to achieve those goals, in a way that there's never any risk or worry that the threat of a lawsuit is going to kill or neuter your story, or that you have to worry about losing funding because you upset a potential funder, because fortunately we don't have those issues. The goal there is just to be able to have the most independence possible for everyone on staff. Here are some of our stars, my colleagues in New York and in Washington. And that sort of mission that exists, that created The Intercept, is pretty rare in the United States, and I believe that it made us one of the, an essential voice in the journalism community. However, those conditions are unthinkable. They've never existed in Brazil. Because in Brazil, the media is controlled, and it's, as far as I understand, Brazil is very similar to Argentina. Argentina might be even worse. Hello, anybody that works here at Clarín. That Grupo Globo is one of the, there's 5 families that control more than half of all of the media in Brazil, the mainstream media. There's 11 families that control almost everything. In certain states, there's one family that controls every single medium of communication, so the newspapers and the radio and the TV station, and if there's a magazine, they control all the same. There's a complete monopoly, and they're also the leading governor, the leading politicians in the area. In Rio de Janeiro, for example, 80% of journalism jobs, more or less, this may have changed since the last time I checked, come from Grupo Globo, which is owned by the Marinho family. They're all multi-billionaires. And so if you're The Intercept Brazil and you're trying to find a Brazilian reporter who's going to do investigation into corruption or improprieties or problems within the Grupo Globo and their ties to governments, it's basically impossible to find someone that's willing to write that story, because they know that maybe they don't work for Globo now, but in a few years, maybe their project will lose funding and they'll have to try to get a job there, and Globo never forgets if you did something like that. Okay, so then say you're a reporter within Globo and you have all the resources and you have the biggest platform possible, and you want to do a story about the former governor of Rio, Sergio Cabral. Let's go back a few years ago when he was in office. And I've spoken to people who have tried to do this. You can't. They won't let you, because Globo had major interest in the Olympics and in the World Cup, and they had huge advertising budgets, and they had very direct ties to the government. Now, fast forward to today, and you want to do a story about Marcelo Crivella, who's the current mayor of Rio. by all means, go ahead, do it. Go. They're going guns blazing because he's the candidate that was elected by a rival oligarch who happens to be the owner and CEO of a major church and another network. So it's clear, and everybody in Brazil, whether you're rich or poor, highly educated or not, there's this understanding that this is how the media works in this country. Whereas at The Intercept Brazil, because we don't have ties to any of these individuals, we're very happy to take shots at Cabral, who's currently facing 100 years in prison for his corruption that's been revealed, no thanks to Globo or any of the other people in their network. Also Crivella and also their corporate funders, et cetera. This is the number 2 group, and this is the number 3 group. There you go. Globo's doing a campaign right now as part of their marketing branch that's co-branded with them called Agro é Pop. Agro is pop. We're doing a campaign right now called Agro é Talks, just mocking it because it's the absurdity of it, and it's a huge issue that's going on in Brazil that we're getting a lot of audience because of this, because the way that the mainstream media is presenting the agrotox industry, the big agro industry, is lacking. Some of the reporting that we do, as I showed previously, we had some stories about a data project about militias, these paramilitary groups that are linked to the police and the military, about the assassination of Vereadora Maria de Franco. But some of the other things that we do that's pretty rare, that you can't find other outlets that are doing in Brazil, are direct media critiques, which are basically critiques at the center of Brazilian power. This is one that we did about Datafolha, and that was they had manipulated their research results. We got the ombudsman to say that we were correct and they were wrong. Folha maintained their position. Another one that we did about how Globo and Folha, they revealed some information about a court case going on with Marcela, the wife of the president, was being blackmailed. They had published some of the court documents, and a judge said that they couldn't do that, violation of privacy, and told them to take it down, that they were basically censored. It was information in the public interest. So we made a point of deciding that we wanted to publish this in violation or in contravention of the judge's order, and basically dare them to sue us. They didn't, or to process us. They didn't, and eventually the ruling was overturned, but it was a symbol of what we're trying to stand up for. And another one here where we found that the wife of the president of Rede Record, which is the third biggest entity, she had a no-show job at a politician's office, his cabinet. We went around, we found that she wasn't there during key votes. She was actually on Instagram in South Africa or in France, and the president of Rede Record threatened our reporter, threatened to sue him, threatened him in other ways. 2 months later, she was quietly fired. But it's the sort of thing that we do that I think makes us unique in the media landscape. And we're trying to do this because we want to not just, we're not just trying to do reporting, but we're trying to inspire a different way of looking at journalism and how journalism can be done, rather than just the way that it's been done by the major institutions in the country. And as a result of that, and we've had a great feedback from our audience. Right now we're doing a crowdfunding campaign. We've gotten a lot of, we're 80% our goal in the first 2 weeks. But as a result of that, soon after we launched, the major publishers got together and they've issued a request in the Supreme Court so that our work, the BBC, El País, BuzzFeed, other foreign entities, would be blocked from working in Brazil because there's an article in the Constitution about foreign media ownership. That was created in the 1930s because American media tycoons were coming in and trying to monopolize and control the discourse in Brazil. Now, the domestic media tycoons that are monopolizing and dominating the media discourse in Brazil are trying to squeeze out the smaller competitors who are trying to create alternative voices. So since I only have 1 minute left, one thing that we when we hire our staff, we've decided we've created a few catchphrases or slogans that we're using to try to help our staff understand exactly what we're trying to do and make it so that everyone is on the same page. The first thing that we tell them is, if it doesn't bother anyone, it's not worth doing. Like, we're here to shake things up, and if you're not doing it, anyone else can do that. The other one is that jargon is the enemy. We have a list of jargon that we're producing that we're going to make public that we're banning from our site, and we're going to explain exactly why. Things like desvio, I can't think of the words in English. Desvio, can someone help me? Desvio in English. Tipo, desvio de recursos. Yeah, desvio de recursos. It's not desvio, it's roubo. It's robbery. They're stealing recourses. They're not rechanneling public money into their pockets. They're stealing the money. If you look at the most newspapers, it's desvio. It's not roubo. The other one is that be the voice of the poor. The rich already have public relations. That's very true. We've seen that every time that we try to do a story about rich people. All governments lie. I have stone. That's a famous one, but it isn't known in Brazil as well. And always telling our reporters to be more aggressive, to try to push to the line, to try to get us sued, or at least make someone want to sue you. We don't actually want to spend all of our time in lawsuits, but we want those stories to have enough impact to make enough people care that that's happening, and we're not afraid of that. And the most important thing that we're doing, and this is something I'm going to talk a lot about in my workshop, is to write it simply. We have in Brazil, there's a study a few years ago that 60% of high school graduates are functionally illiterate in Brazil. There's a huge movement of people that are the first people in their family to go to college. There's massive engagement in politics and in society, but people do not feel represented by the elite corporate-run media that dominates the discourse. And one thing that we've heard multiple times is that when I'm reading something in the newspaper and I don't understand it, or if I'm looking at other outlets, I always go to the Intercept Brazil because it's somewhere that I can understand what the hell everyone's talking about. And that's one of the most important things that we're trying to do. We're not doing enough because it's very difficult, honestly. And lastly, have a point of view, because I think there's been a lot of talks that have been happening here that I've seen where everyone wants to change journalism, but they don't want to change the way that they're journalists. By adhering to the idea of being unbiased and not having and being neutral, in the age of public social media especially, everyone understands what it means to put up a public face. Everyone understands what it means to, I'm not going to say lie, but represent yourself in a different way. And the bullshit meter that people have, I think, has gone up dramatically. And so everybody knows that you're human beings, that you have a point of view, be honest about it, and in that way you can be more effective. And that's the way that we believe you can build better trust with your audience. But it doesn't mean, it means be fair. Don't try to be neutral, try to be fair, and be very well researched and fact-checked. I'm going to skip through most of the rest of this. These are some things that we took these slogans and we've made art, and we're putting them up to decorate our office, and we're giving them away for the crowdfunding people, contributors. And so basically, skipping most of the rest, I'm going to be doing a much longer talk at 1:30 at Sala Abasto about simple, aggressive, and relevant, a new journalism for societies that hate journalists, and talking about the ways that we're trying to create a different model that doesn't just replicate the same example that Folha or Globo or the others are doing in the country, and trying to get engagement from a younger audience and a different audience. Thank you.